Hello and welcome to Opinions Plus. I think I have some of the audio improved, if not fixed, but lighting is now a problem. Um, Low budget means low budget. Anyway, I did want to take a minute because in my last clip I talked about thinking and decency and honor. And it's the thinking part that I want to emphasize a little bit today. I heard this before, but um, you know, one just has to wonder. I can't help it. You just have to wonder. Apparently, this Trump guy on this Las Vegas thing, and he's used this story before, but the way he frames it and the way the crowds cheer for it, I posed this question to this boat manufacturer in South Carolina. And he says, Ben, they're pushing electric boats. Well, um, you know, and then he goes into the scenario, which you probably heard. This boat, this electric boat, sinks under its own weight. I mean, just the craziness of that statement sinks under its own weight. It's an electric boat. It's assuming it's fairly, um, you know, at least 35, 40 feet, big boat, uh, fairly wealthy man's type thing. Not your rowboat, not your little skiff, but a boat. Anyway, it's so bloody heavy that it sinks under its own weight after it got out, into the open ocean, I guess. And, the manufacturer and the purchaser didn't know that this boat would just sink under its own weight. I mean, holy crow. Anyway, that's the thing that opened my eyes first when he said that. And the people accepted it. Sinked under its own weight. And then you have this huge battery pushing out electricity in the ocean, and you have this shark 10 yards off. There's very specific distance, 10 yards, you know. And then he goes into some stories about some young lady getting her leg chewed on, which has happened. People, especially surfers and people like that, have, there's risks in the ocean. But again, it's perpetuating this fear, but it there's so many ancillary issues that go along with these stories. But then he says, you know, all of you people agree. He says, if I'm going to die, I'll just be electrocuted on this huge battery. As if he has, it's just laying out there in the middle of the boat and he just grabs the two terminals and, away he goes. Rather than being eaten by a shark or chewed on or whatever. And, in practical terms, nobody wants to be eaten by sharks. Nobody. Uh, you know, there's so many issues at large to talk about and to illustrate concerns for people and their life and their future. But shark attacks aren't one of them. And especially shark attacks when you get plunged into I guess you're far from shore and help and you've not radioed anybody and, the death is imminent. You just grab these electrodes and go electrocute yourself. But then to add insult into this crazed story, he says, when I posed this question to this boat manufacturer, never named and never talked about, that he says, well, nobody ever asked me that question before. Wow. And Mr. Trump says, well, it just shows, my MIT connections, how wonderful an idea that are, really, a poignant question of the time. Nobody's ever asked me that because nobody would have thought of it, is probably the reason. And, the fact that if he addressed it in the same way, talking to the boat manufacturer who is apparently making electric boats as well as regular, the normal type boats with the inboard engines or the outboard engines or whatever, that, this is just crazy. And the connection with MIT, because I guess maybe his uncle had some connection with MIT, and through genetics, there is a great mental dominance, preponderance of intellectual power given to him via this gene, this MIT gene, which is given at birth before one knows they're going to MIT or have an intellect at all. Anyway, I just found it preposterous that people would address that and think about, at all. That it is not a detriment. It's not a detrimental statement. And then people, have put out there, Biden has raised some story. I guess he talked about his uncle in New Guinea and, in serious situations. And there are many, and I don't know how true it is, I don't know anything about it. And, these are war situations. People have had indigenous tribes that are, they're cannibalistic. I don't know where in New Guinea or whatever country or whatever, but there are tribes that are, headhunters, and they shrink the skulls and all that stuff, the heads. And, there are people like that out there. I don't know if Biden's uncle met these guys or not. Or, he was, maybe he's a wounded soldier, had no choice, whatever. I don't know. But during that World War II, the Japanese in the Pacific did terrible things to people. Terrible. It's just the facts. But nobody wants to look at the facts. Nobody wants to think, look at these things and do a thorough question about it. Because in general, these stories, because they are unbelievable, because in most of our lives we don't have to deal with things like that. We don't even contemplate issues like that. How could it possibly happen? Well, it could. And yes, I guess it is possible that somebody could build a battery too big, too heavy for the boat, that it would sink out on, maybe moderate to heavy seas out in the mid-ocean but nobody noticed that the battery is so overweight that, the boat is already sinking halfway out the channel. Anyway, there's a lot of incongruities there. But it just strikes me that these issues either have little or no consequence, or they don't add to the information that people who give these kind of statements, and you can, drunk or sober, it doesn't really matter. People do have, times when they're not all that together. They have nightmares, they have problems, they have intellectual issues. But these are prepared political speeches. Prepared. Thought about. Sometimes people go off script. Sometimes they say things off the top of their heads. In my clips, everything is off the top of my head. So it's not really, I don't have an excuse when I say something that might be a little off. But just think about these things. Just think about what it means to be talking about at a major political rally, talking about, and multiple times in multiple rallies, windmills killing birds, and you've seen the speed in which those blades turn. It's not like you know, a house fan that's going around 75 miles an hour there, you know, killing birds as soon as they get sucked in. There are deaths, I'm sure. I mean, I've had a hawk strike my window, just fly right into my window and die. I've seen that happen. So, not a windmill, stationary piece, but they do it because they're flying at X thousand miles an hour. Those birds really move. I'm sorry, it's an exaggeration. But, when you talk about these facts, you've got to be 100% right on the point. So I don't know how fast a hawk flies, but this young hawk was going at a pretty good clip, hit the door and died. And it was a glass door, so, could have seen a reflection, maybe disoriented. And it happens to people too. But look at the story, look at what it means, look at how it's said, look at how the delivery is given. I'm no mental, professional at all, but the story is so ludicrous. But the recipients accept these stories without pause, without concern, without critique. They just do. And that's a worry. I think everybody can agree that's a worry. Die by electrocution in a sinking overweight ship by a huge electric battery that weighs twice as much as the bloody boat, or death by a shark, whatever type shark it is. Maybe it's not even a man-eating shark. Maybe it's a little sand shark. I don't know. But whatever it is, be prepared. Could happen. Life's filled with mysteries, filled with mysteries. If you like what you see and you want to subscribe, please do. And pass on the clip if you think it has some value to someone. But the underlying focus always is think, listen attentively, and think about what your candidate, what your people that you're supporting think about, talk about, and I know people do, but think comprehensively, think critically, think in what is good in terms of goodness and value, and supports the entire person. Engage in all the aspects of what is heard and what is seen. It isn't easy. There's so many lies out there, you can't believe anything anymore. Really believe it. I used to have a lot of confidence in what was being reported. Today, you just wonder. You don't know anything. And with AI, it's getting worse. These comedians are putting all kinds of AI pictures up, and you just don't know, they're funny, they're embarrassing, they're sad in many cases, but they're made in a shop. They're, computer generated. So be aware, use your reality, use your wisdom, use your common sense. In the last clip, decency and honor. This clip, use your common sense. Use your abilities to think. Think about all things. The environment, abortion, political issues, threats, revenge, dictatorship, authoritarianism, democracy, constitution, your rights as human beings, your rights to deal with your own bodies in a way that is reasonable and moral. There's so many things in this world that we have to think about. I know it's a challenge, and many people don't think. They give the excuse, well, I'm busy doing this or busy doing that. And they are busy, but that doesn't mean your mind can't think about it. Think about it. Have a good day. Thank you. Go to the good. Keep hope alive. It's the main issue. It's the main issue. Character matters. Character matters. Thank you.